Hi everybody, it's Sandy here, and as you can see, we've got our usual crew with us. We've got John, we've got Rich, we've got Esther and Guy on. Hello everybody, how's everybody doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
As ever, have a cup of tea, I'm happy.
Yeah, I've got mine somewhere over here. Today we're going to be talking about something which I'm going to let Rich sort of fill in the back end of this, but it's about criticising religious beliefs and some of the things that go around that. And maybe we ought to put a content warning on, because you may get offended by what we say about some of this stuff if you're easily offended. So just like brace yourself.
And that's a bit of foreshadowing for this discussion.
Why we're doing this.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. As I say, that's a bit of foreshadowing, because one of the things that a criticism is often raised to us is that by criticising religious beliefs, and religious practices, that is in fact insulting to people. And, you know, if you want to be a decent person, the one thing you don't really want to be doing is insult people. Now, one of the reasons why, again, this has come up, this is another one of those 4 Pratt arguments that we set our poll on. We've done the first 2. We've done the atheism is a religion / don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and we have done positive reasons for atheism. This one is number 3 in that series. So why do we feel the need to insult religious people? Now, of course, occasionally occasionally some atheists do go out to insult people. That's not our way of doing things generally. We are interested in the intellectual and philosophical basis behind religion, the factual claims that religions make, examining the evidence for and against religion. And as you know, the arguments for are incredibly weak and are incredibly terrible if they exist at all. But the fact that people take offence at the fact we are criticising religions. Some people take offence at the fact that we criticise religions in general. Some people take offence that when we criticise specific religions, especially minority ones. But all religions, as well as all religions, are religions, and we take the arguments on merit or lack thereof. But we find that people, even with the best intentions, even with the best argumentation, and as I say, the fact that we're not intending to insult people, people will take insult anyway. And it's not just the religious that take insult to being questioned. We've found a few non-religious people that get insulted on behalf of religious people as well, on top of that. And I'm curious as to sort of some of the psychological things that are actually going on there. Now, of course, my first thought whenever I see this knee-jerk reaction from a religious person saying, "Why are you insulting me?" When we're not actually intending to insult, we're asking, without wanting to use the just asking questions excuse, which is not actually what we're doing. We are examining the evidence and finding it to be weak. We are questioning the evidence. They take personal offense at it. And it's one of those, what I describe as get out of jail mechanisms that religions seem to have in response to criticism, is to claim being insulted. Because most people don't want to insult anybody, and I certainly don't want to insult anybody. In fact, if I actually find I have insulted somebody, I'm often mortified at the fact that I've done it, and I tend regularly beat myself up, thinking, "Have I actually insulted that person? Because that was never my intent." But there just seems to be this switch in the mind of some religious believers, where they become defensive about their unjustified beliefs, treat it as an insult, claim that they've been insulted, and disengage from you. So, what?
Yeah, do you think that criticism is silenced by accusation, isn't it? I mean, you can criticize something, and then if they accuse you of something, for instance, like Islamophobia or anti-semitism or anti-Christian commentary about something which they believe is sacred, if they criticize you, or if they accuse you of something, it's designed basically to shut the criticism down. Yeah. But there's lots of different levels of criticism as well, isn't there? I mean, we can, and when we've criticised something on the Facebook group or on Twitter or some sort of social media platforms, it could be some very light criticism about a religion or religions in general. We could talk about indoctrination of children, or religion's harmful to individuals, or it's a political tool, make some sort of statement, and you can get shut down pretty quickly.
Yeah,
saying.
I mean, can I come in here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether you agree with me, but I think the position has improved over the last 10 years, especially as regards Muslims. 10 years ago, Muslims were very annoyed at the slightest criticism of Islam, but I think they're getting used to it. Certainly on places like Facebook, it's fundamental Christian fundamentalists that are more of a problem these days, I find, and I think that the allegation of insult has to be looked at. Is it a person we're insulting, or is it an ideology? And I think when we're criticizing an ideology, ideas don't have any rights not to be insulted, not to be criticized, not to be analyzed, not to be rejected. But when it comes to people, I think we should try to be, and I try to be, a little bit softer and gentler and respectful, because people have the right to believe wrong things.
But don't you think, Guy, that it's like a transference of accusation? It's like you can have an accusation, or you can talk about something and criticize something which is, there's religious people, indoctrinate children, and we believe that. I believe that.
Yeah.
And that is something which can then be transferred. And are you saying that I indoctrinate people? And that is taken as an insult.
But of course they are.
Yeah,
they are, but they don't like to be told that. And that's when they get offended, even though what we're saying is religion does that. And if you're part of religion, then yes, by that transference, you are indoctrinating children. And
I think John just had his hand up there for a second.
John,
Yeah. Well, I like what you said, Guy, and I also like Andy's word "sacred" he threw in just a few minutes ago. I've been in the Skeptics in the Pub movement for about 10 years, and the motto is respect people, challenge ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we should do. But unfortunately, religious people tend to meld the two together.
Yes,
they own their ideas as though it's their identity.
Yeah.
And
it is their identity.
Well, the reason they do this, and as a retired science teacher, I don't feel the need to own the force of gravity. The reason that they do it is because they don't have any evidence. So the only way they can defend their beliefs, which are not, the problem with a belief is it's not knowledge. And the only way they can defend it is emotionally.
That's right.
And there's the nuts of the problem. And that's why
it's wrapped up with their identity, their emotions.
That's why they have to have words like sacred. And that means you can't criticize me, or you can't criticize this thing. And who was it said, find out who you can't criticize, and that's the person that controls you.
Yeah.
I forget who said it. It's a famous saying, but there you go.
Yeah.
And I think I remember Dan Dennett in one of his talks. He actually said there is no polite way to tell somebody that they have invested their entire life, because for many of these religious people, it is their entire life, and there is no polite way to tell them you have invested your entire life in a lie. And as you say, it is wrapping up their identity in a belief system.
Yeah.
And I remember a fantastic equivalence of this when I was talking to people who, should we say, do stupid things. And when you're telling them that they're doing a stupid thing, you're not telling them that they are stupid. What you're telling them is that particular thing that you are doing is stupid. And we're human beings. We've all done stupid things, and I'm sure each and every one of us in the not so distant future will do a stupid thing or say a stupid thing, not necessarily meaning it to be stupid or even knowing that it was stupid at the time, but being told that something that you are doing is stupid is not the same as telling them that they are stupid. I mean, I refer to a number of different people on the atheism circuit, and they said, we're not stupid people. I didn't become more intelligent when I left my religion. All I did was re-examine what it was I was believing and what it was I was doing, and realizing that I was only doing it because that is how I had been told told to live my life by all the authority figures around me. And I didn't have the opportunity to examine it. And I didn't have the opportunity to actually think for myself. That wasn't because I was stupid. It wasn't because I wasn't intelligent. It's because that is how I was brought up to think.
Yeah, it's the context that they find themselves in. But you make another point there too, because having wasted many years of their lives, that's why ex-religious atheists, the ones who have managed to get out, and it's a struggle for them very often, make some of the most aggressive, the most militant atheists, because they've got a grievance.
Oh yes, absolutely. And for me, it's this thing. It's okay to feel insulted, right? If someone challenges your beliefs, but it's what you do after then. That's what matters. So some people then go on to have they go on to form their blasphemy laws, and you can't insult my God, my prophet, and so therefore you deserve to be in jail. There's people in jail right now because they've insulted someone's religion, right? In Nigeria, it's Mubarak Bala.
Yeah.
He's been in jail now for over 600 days. He's an atheist, and all he did was say something against Allah or Muhammad, one of those. I really don't know, but it's not just about feeling insulted, but it's what you do after your feelings of being insulted. And if your God is that big, mighty God, why do you need to feel so insulted on his behalf?
Yeah.
Why can't he, if what that person has said is so grievous to your God, he can sort him out. He can dish out the penalties himself. He doesn't need you to act on his behalf,
And in some countries, it's a capital offence.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I was just saying, in some countries that's a capital offence
Yeah.
to insult the prophet.
But Balor's been in as you say, for 600 plus days.
Yeah.
Um,
I think in the last
No
day or
trial.
two he was produced in court.
yeah.
Was he now?
Well, he was
Yeah, there's
scheduled.
been a development.
He was scheduled to. Whether it actually happened or not, I don't know, because
Right. I'm waiting to hear more
commonly
news.
one side or the other doesn't turn up, and they have to reschedule.
Mm.
A lot of these things, there's no trial. They're just arrested. Mairead Balor was a Nigerian humanist, head of Nigerian
Yes.
humanists, wasn't he? Humanism in Nigeria. But this happens a lot. This sort of thing happens a lot where they get accused of blasphemy and put in prison. I mean, actually put in prison without trial. They're just put in prison, and as you say, 600 days later, nothing's happened. And this to me is an insult. As an insult to humanity.
Yes. Yes.
But we don't get the same sort of pleasure of saying that you've insulted our intelligence, you've insulted the basic humanity of this planet by doing this sort of crap. That's what we should be getting annoyed at.
Yes.
Not when we say that you're spreading misinformation or indoctrinating your children, and you get annoyed at that. When theists get annoyed at that sort of thing, that's pathetic when it comes down to this sort of inhumanity to people.
I'm mindful that Mark's not here. Embers hasn't made it today, but on his behalf, I'd like to try and bring the focus back to the UK because I know he'd like that. And our situation here is we've got a privileged church that's been established for nearly 500 years, and the tradition about them says that for a long time the parish vicar was the only person in the village who could read and write, so he was regarded as some sort of academic, and of course he proclaimed his righteousness, so he was looked up to, and as a result of which people didn't like to say bad things about him. And now we've got a sort of legacy of that, which means that the Archbishop of Canterbury gets his own radio station, his own radio show, which starts, I'll give him a commercial, it's starting on Sunday, and it's a sort of Ask the Arch show on Radio 4, and that'll be interesting to watch. I might start doing a debunk the Archbishop answer to it, a response. But what we're left with is this sort of feeling that the church is, in some people's minds, the feeling that the church is untouchable and you mustn't say anything naughty about it. And so we've ended up with a generation of sort of religious snowflakes who are there feeling precious on behalf of the church and trying to protect it. Like Esther was saying, that it needs humans to defend it because God can't strike people himself.
I think though that the Church of England is one of the least offenders here.
Yeah.
They seem to be able to take humour and criticism on the chin, and half of them actually agree with what you're saying even. But one thing that I notice coming up on Facebook particularly is people who claim that atheists hate God.
Yes.
And this really annoys me because you've got to believe a God exists before you can hate something. So it's doubly it's stupid, to be honest. And there's lots of silly things like this that these fundamentalists come up with. I wonder whether there's some organization just generating these troll idiot sort of
Troll Academy
posts. Yeah. Because some of them are, and they come up again and again, the same silly errors. You get half a dozen or maybe 20 or 30 or more atheists will sometimes using insults, but very often just calmly explaining the reality. It happens again.
Can I ask you guys a question? So I was in conversation with some people yesterday, and this religious person, he was talking about teaching your children while they're very young, because when they go off to university, they'll be exposed to other religions and all these other things, and so you want to start them off on the Christian faith. And because he then went on to say that chances are they might meet atheists, and atheists also indoctrinate their children, right? And that got me, because I was thinking, hang on, atheists indoctrinate. He says he said atheists indoctrinate the children with their worldviews. So, do you think that is that possible? Can atheists indoctrinate their children?
Sure.
What with?
Well, yeah, they can. I think what the point of that is that when people sort of have a certain way of thinking, yes, absolutely, anybody can indoctrinate anybody in a way of a thought. You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious that you can do that. I think that the biggest difference is, for me, is that most of the atheists, I mean, I'm talking about 99% of the atheists that I meet, don't do that. They don't really sort of indoctrinate people in specific worldviews, apart from maybe politics. You know, they'll have a political view which they'll protect vehemently. But I think where it comes to things like with, you know, things like the religious side of this, what you're actually looking at more is atheists tend to be more critical of belief systems. So they wouldn't indoctrinate. I don't think atheists indoctrinate other atheists. I don't think that's the thing. They'll have a conversation with people and they'll say, well, why do you believe that, and things like that. Because most atheists aren't really there to convert people to be atheists. You know, it's not what we're here for. We're not here to convert people. We're just here to talk about this stuff, you know, so people understand what atheism actually is rather than what they think it is, which is the biggest issue.
Yeah.
So if people do deconvert as a result of that, all well and good. But
people, exactly.
I mean,
if they open their minds up a little bit and sort of have a look at what belief systems actually mean, and all the different types of belief systems, how they contradict each other and all that sort of thing. And to be honest, when you're looking at what some, you know, the concept of the supernatural, well, you might as well be talking about the X-Men. You know, it's exactly the same to me. You know, it's completely on par. What people believe religiously and what the latest X-Men movie, it's the same sort of thing. It's just supernatural, unproven stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I think. Go on.
Sorry, I'm all speaking at once here. To answer Esther's question, I don't think there's anything to indoctrinate from the point of view of an atheist, because to do that you would need to have an ideology, you would need to have values and principles, you need to have a Bible, you know. But the atheist Bible is full of blank pages. There's nothing in there. It's not an ideology. There's no belief system to impart. Now, what I might do is I might educate people about science, but I don't do that because I'm an atheist. I do that because I've been a science teacher all my life, you know, and this is a separate thing.
I mean, I'm going to slightly disagree with John here, because I think that there is a sense, that it's only a sense, in which atheists do influence their children. Obviously, we always influence our children, but the point is that an atheist will have a critical and skeptical view of ideas, and will impart that skepticism and that ability to question and critically analyze things to their children. And that's why actually most children of atheist parents do not become believers. Some do, but most don't. Whereas what the religious family does is much more, I think, hands-on indoctrination, in the sense that this is what you've got to believe. You know, this is what we believe, and this is what we expect you to believe. I think there is an element in which that's much more sort of obviously indoctrination.
And the consequences for not believing it.
So,
I mean, as I say, Esther, you came from a very strong Christian background. And I'm sure that you were taught when you were a kid that this is what you believe. This is what you believe. This is the consequences if you don't believe that. They are horrendous, and you don't want that to happen to you. And when you're a young, when you've got a young mind, which, you know, as we now know, you know, minds develop at a certain age to believe what authority figures tell them as a matter of survival mechanism, that has been hijacked by religion. That has been, you know, hijacked by that religious belief. So the same mechanism that says to the adults tell their children, don't play by the cliff, you'll fall off and die.
Yeah.
You know, don't go and play in that scrub grass over there. There are snakes in there. Has been hijacked by a religion saying you must believe that this God exists, and if you don't do what it says in this book, which was written by this God, I know this is an oversimplification, but this is a caricature. But and if you don't do that, you will be thrown in a pit of fire and burned forever after you die. There's a big difference between it, but it's the same. It's the same mechanism where an adult tells a child, and then going back to our original point, that child then grows up. That idea is lodged in their brain, becomes part of their identity, and the moment you start saying, actually, if you look at, yes, absolutely, don't go and play in that long grass. There are still snakes, because we know that there are snakes in there because we can see the snakes. We've seen the consequences of people that have gone in there and been bitten by those snakes, or we know what happens when people fall off cliffs, etc., etc. But the principle of, well, there's no good reason to believe that a God actually exists other than you've been told by an authority figure. That's it. That's all you've got, is being told by that authority figure. Yeah. And when you start critically looking at it, you realize that there is nothing there. You know, and people get very caught up because it's lodged in their brain. And as we said before, it becomes part of their identity, and people end up getting very, very offended by the very fact that you are questioning something that they have believed for a very, very long time.
And their parents told them. So they have to distance themselves from their parents. And of course, they don't want to believe that their parents lied to them.
No.
That's
the problem is
hurdle they've got to get over.
Yeah, but the problem is then hopefully they start to realise that, you know, within the criminology biz, we talk about intent. Their parents did not intend to lie to them, because their parents believed it as well, because it was what was told to them by their parents.
That's right. They thought they were doing the best for their own children. But what Guy highlighted was the difference between content and examination, because as atheists we don't have any content, we don't have any behaviors that we wish to impart or beliefs that we wish to impart. What we do want to do, and I do this with my children because I've still got young children, is we want not to teach them what to think, but to teach them how to think. So I will say to the kids, if something comes up, you know, some, I don't know, item of information or issue or something, I will say, what do you think? Do you believe that?
Absolutely. Yes.
Why do you believe that?
Yeah.
So when you think about religion, think about Christianity, for example, there's so many interpretations, there's so many denominations, and I feel like if God truly wanted us to know the truth, he would have at least shown us which version of Christianity is the truth. Now, the fact that there's so many, right, leaves us with no other option but to challenge and to ask questions. And if your religion cannot be scrutinized and critiqued, then there's a problem with it. If challenging and criticizing your beliefs leaves you insulted, then you should really ask yourself, is this religion worth is it worth the trouble? Because I feel like the fact that there's just so many interpretations, right? At some point, the people in this religion need to ask the question, which one is right?
Exactly.
Right? And then I say to people, I will respect the person and not the beliefs.
Yes.
Right. So if I do challenge your beliefs, I'm not trying to disrespect you. It's the ideology, right? I'm trying to, it's not you, it's not addressed. So I would not disrespect Christians, but I would not disrespect, but I would challenge the Christianity, but not the individual, if you know what I mean. So I try to say to them, don't take any offense. This is not directed at you, but at the ideology, at the belief system.
And the problem that we then have is, you may say that, but in their head, the fact that you've challenged my ideology means that you are challenging me.
Yeah.
Is that transference? Yeah.
It's that transference from the ideology to themselves. And you can say, well, you
because
can
it's them that believes in the ideology. So therefore, you're saying, if you're saying my ideology is wrong, or you criticize my ideology in some way, then you're actually criticizing me, and I don't want you to criticize it. And that's when they take offense.
And I think that is the. I think there you've actually hit that nail on the head. You know, and it's that transference. We don't, we challenge bad ideas because bad ideas have bad consequences. And actually, in a way, we're challenging these ideas out of respect for people.
Oh, yes.
Because we don't want to see these bad consequences, which is evidenced all around us, on a regular basis. You only have to look at any particular atheist news service Facebook page to see the bad consequences of some of these actions.
Yeah.
Whilst I wouldn't, thought crime, I wouldn't want to try and outlaw thought. I wouldn't want to try and outline thought. Actions can be, but I'm going. Sorry, I'm babbling now. Someone take over.
Can I just jump in here? The one thing that struck me was when something you said, Esther, was that your Christian friend was worried that when you better get them talking about Christianity now, because when they leave, maybe for university or something like that, they may come across atheists. And I was just thinking, really, the worst thing we can do is to indoctrinate them into maybe something like critical thinking. But that can't be a bad thing, surely.
No, not.
I mean, we're actually doing people a service.
I think that's what university is for.
Yeah, but then...
Sorry, Guy?
I think that's what university is for.
Yeah.
To expose people to a wide range of ideas.
Yes.
Critical thinking skills don't just apply to religion only.
No,
they
don't.
apply to a wide variety of things. You want to go out and buy yourself a car. You think, okay, what car is cheap? Which one's energy efficient? Which one's easier to run? You use those skills on a daily basis. So it's not just only applying to religion only. So these skills, we need them, and we need to teach these skills. Now, going back to my own, as an ex-religious person, I can relate with people who feel like their ideologies have been challenged, or how they might feel like they're insulted. Because imagine somebody who has who was born into this religion, didn't know any other ideologies or worldview. That's all they've known. They've grown up this way, and then you come along and say, no, this might be wrong. For a lot of religious people, it's that bubble. When you're in that bubble, it's hard. It's hard to break through. It's hard to get through to them. I've actually heard someone say to me that even if Christianity was proven to be false, they will still serve Jesus. Where do you begin with that kind of?
Yeah.
Where do you begin?
It's a lost cause, that one. But I like
the other way you could look at it is, if tomorrow a great powerful being were to arrive on earth and declare that he or she were God, how would we be able to test that hypothesis? Could we be sure that he wasn't just somebody from a more advanced civilization with lots of power, but not actually the creator, almighty, omniscient, etc. God? We wouldn't be able to test that out. So we could be the victim of a fraud.
Yeah, although I know a few biologists that would like to go in there with a biopsy needle.
Yes. I wanted to say, apropos what Esther said a few minutes ago, how can you tell one religion from another, one branch of Christianity from another? Because God doesn't seem to help you with that. What we really need is the by appointment by God to one particular Christian cult. And then we wouldn't have to do our critical thinking, would we?
Well, I think one of the really
consumer advice would already be there.
I mean, I know that we brought up that apologist a couple of podcasts ago, the one that was the scientist, and and as I say, I've been looking into him more and more. I was looking into him a little bit, and there is nothing more entertaining when you get a Christian apologist like him go up against a Christian apologist like Ken Ham. Again, two very, very different forms of Christianity. Very, very different. And you get them into the same room together. It's get out the popcorn time, because I find these two different ideologies battling it out. Or you get a religious apologist from, for example, the few Catholics versus Protestant debates I've seen, and some of the arguments that they sort of make to each other, which in both directions are absolute nonsense. Yeah, they will fight that corner with vehemence, and again literally starting to insult each other personally.
Yeah.
You often find that the religious are the first to jump on another religion and insult them far more than any of us do. I mean, that one you were talking about between Hugh Ross and Ken Ham, it's a church program as well, and they were hammer and tongs at each other because they have completely different views of what Christianity actually is.
Yes.
One's a young Earth creationist, the other one's an old Earth creationist. They're still creationists, but they can't decide on what it is. But this happens between Christians and Muslims, and Jews and Muslims and Jews and Christians. It happens time and time again. I mean, it reminds me of that joke that Hitchens did years ago when he got he was saying about a guy got stopped in Northern Ireland and said, you're a Catholic or a Protestant? And he said, well, I'm actually an atheistic Jew. And he says, you a Catholic Jew or a Protestant Jew? I mean, it is really as ridiculous as that. I mean, this melding between politics and religion. Because one of the things you're told when you're young, is when you go to like a dinner party or go to a party, there's two things you don't talk about is religion and politics, because they're so intertwined anyway.
That's an indictment. It's an indictment in itself that you're not allowed to talk about them. Yes.
Yeah, my mother used to say that to me. She said, "Don't talk about religion, politics, or sex." And I said, "Well, those are the only things I'm interested in."
Yes.
I mean, I want to take you back to. I want to take you back actually to a quote. One of my favourite quotes from the late great Douglas Adams, he of the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, and he said, "Religion has certain ideas at the heart of it which we call sacred or holy or whatever. If someone votes for a party that you don't agree with, you're free to argue about it as much as you like. Everyone will have an argument, but no one feels aggrieved by it. Although I think these days, sometimes people have started to become aggrieved by it, but moving on from that. If someone thinks that taxes should go up or down, you're free to have an argument about it. But if, on the other hand, someone says, I must not move a light switch on a Saturday, you say, I respect that. Yet when you look at it rationally, there is no reason why those ideas shouldn't be as open to debate as any other, except that we've agreed somehow between us that they shouldn't be. Why? Because they shouldn't be.
No reason.
Exactly, and that there is no reason. And one of the interesting things, just before we came on today, we were talking a little bit about politics and local politics, and as an organisation, we don't do partisan politics, but at least 3 of us on this call belong to 3 different mainstream political parties. Right? The fact that actually most of the time we generally agree with each other on many of these matters, but at least 3 of us belong to 3 different political parties. Yet we're able to have civilized conversations about politics between us.
Absolutely.
And none of us are aggrieved by it if we disagree with each other. Although saying that, a former member of ours, who, though not a member of a political party, had very strong political ideas that I think everyone on this call would have considered to be appalling. But we would have, we'd have heated exchanges in the pub after meetings about certain issues, usually around the environment. Actually, it was issues around the environment, and we'd disagree. We would have a heated argument about it in the pub. We'd finished the argument. Whilst we may have felt a little bit aggrieved during the argument, once the argument was over, right, who's getting the next beer? And it was, and that's a slight difference between, should we say, politics and religion. But again, I think one of the problems is there are some similarities between politics and religion because, again, ideologies tend to trample rational thought sometimes. But I don't want to go down that particular rabbit hole. But it's about, I think one of the things, going back to our initial point, is that we don't feel insulted just because we belong to different political parties. We do feel insulted by the fact that we're atheists and we question things. John?
I wanted to take it back to the start as well, because we began by saying that offence is more taken than given. We may not want to offend people, but they find something in what we've said that they can take as offensive to them. And it reminds me of what Stephen Fry said. He said, I forget where it was he said this, but he said, what does I'm offended mean? I mean, have you been bruised? Do you have broken bones? My reaction to I'm offended is, well, so what?
However, then there are those individuals that do intend to offend. There are those individuals, and there are individuals in the atheist community that have done this over the years, and there are other people in, should we say, political extremist circles that use the legitimate criticisms that we have in order to offend and discriminate. Oh, is it me that's hissing?
No, I think it might be Esther. I don't know. One of us is hissing.
So what do we do? What do we do about those individuals that do it because they want to offend and because they want to rile people up as a result? Yeah. What do we do about those individuals?
Yeah, well, they
do exist.
They do exist. Yeah, I do a lot of arguing on Facebook. It amuses me. It's my entertainment, and I make a point of not being offensive until usually a Christian offends me. It is deliberately does an ad hominem on me, And then I think, well, you've licensed it now, I can do it back.
You did it first.
Yes, exactly.
Can I just say this is something I found while I was looking at stuff for this particular podcast. It talks about the negative effects of religion on the society. There's so many, but it was this that got me. It says here, to blindly follow a religious or any other ideology simply means to restrict your perception, to suppress your thoughts and emotions, and to live in hypocrisy. In other words, to live in pain and misery.
Cut.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I think that's probably a good a time as any to wrap this up. But thanks everybody for joining in on this, because it is something which is a bit of an issue, and something which we have to put up with quite a bit. That that we're told that we're offending people when we're not, or we're not intentionally trying to offend people. But a lot of the time, it's really sort of brought up because someone says something, or that something happens, and we respond to that. So, anything else anybody's got to say before we
just to say, criticizing a religious belief or a religious practice, because we didn't talk much about practices, and they can be horrendous sometimes. But criticism of religious belief or practice based on the evidential basis behind it, or based upon even the moral basis behind it, and we spoke about morality a fair bit, is not meant to be an insult. The fact that you have taken it as an insult is, or at least should be, your problem, not ours. But we try to be decent human beings, and we're actually approaching this debate because we want to be decent human beings. And we are undergoing this intellectual criticism because we actually care about people. If you take that as an insult, well, that's down to you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. If you like what we're talking about, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and put comments down, ask questions. That's what we're here for. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and share as much as you possibly can. And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Well, thanks for joining us today, and don't forget to click that like button. Also, make a comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.